Hello YouTube. I have a few announcements that I wanted to put out on here. Sort of a Monday morning announcements. First I wanted to give a book update on reading through both Wind and Truth and Mistborn. Wind and Truth I'm like, I don't even know, I'm like maybe a quarter of the way through. I'm past the day one, and the second day seems to be much longer. I'm enjoying it so far. I've heard some interesting criticism and stuff from people not liking Wind and Truth. Might have a different opinion, so as I read through it, but some of the stuff people have been saying so far is things like that they don't like that it's very sort of mental health heavy and sort of this internal healing situation, but I'm actually kind of liking that. I'm enjoying it, and maybe because the book is hitting me at the right time, because I'm also, I would say, coming out of trauma therapy, and now I'm doing other types of therapy, so like right where Kaladin's at the start of the book, I find that very relatable personally. I also feel like Sanderson's handling the subject pretty well. I mean, this is an epic fantasy series that has lots of LGBTQ characters. There are transgender characters. There are obviously same-sex couples and a lot of mental health stuff that's happening that, in my opinion, is interesting to read. So then again, I'm going off of Redditors, so what are you going to do? But about a quarter of the way through that. Mistborn, I'm probably about the same. My reading slowed down recently a little bit as I was dealing with some kind of life stuff that was happening. But I'm making progress, and I've been bookmarking some scenes that I already want to draw, beginning descriptions of the characters, and yeah, it's been fun so far. So I'm kind of trucking along. I'm still planning on doing an illustration series, so stay tuned for that. My own life and my kind of therapy stuff that's been going on, definitely dealing with a more fun of therapy. I've come out of the, heavy trauma therapy where it's a lot of looking for all of the worst memories, and now I'm dealing with my own kind of mental blocks around creating and being an artist. And one thing that has come up is I am doing a lot of kind of work around what it is I'm even trying to do. It wasn't a given that I would jump back into illustration work and art, and I really was battling with this stuff for a while. Like, what the hell I actually want to do with my life. And recently I did some kind of like, if I could do anything I wanted, what would I do? Kind of mental exercises. And like about I'm playing the violin now. Like, would I be happy being a professional violinist? Do I want to play in an orchestra? Do I want to be a fiddler? Being a college professor is very attractive to me. Teaching at a college level, teaching illustration and art, and even art history. Things like, what was another one that came up? Like being an editor at a publishing house, especially because I love reading and I love discussing books. And I think recently I realized that it's very attractive to sort of like look for a label, look for a thing that feels like that's a nice identity that feels good. Like being a college professor, like, feels really good as a label that I can put on myself. But imagining myself actually teaching or imagining the classes gets fuzzy very quickly. On top of the fact that realistically I would need to get a master's and it would take a lot of time and networking, and that part of the journey is not attractive to me, except for the going to college part, but it's expensive and I can't afford it. And I think it was the same with some of the other ideas where I thought, oh yeah, like, being an editor at a publishing house, like, that's cool. That's a cool job. But do I actually enjoy editing specifically? I don't know. Alternatively, I do really like talking about art, being a part of the conversation, discussing. I love learning. I love learning new skills. I like learning about my own legacy in the art world. And I loved being a college student. I want to make YouTube videos about alternatives to, I want to make a YouTube video about if you're a D&D GM running a game, here are some alternatives to AI for making quick maps so that you're not using AI. Here's why AR art is bad and you shouldn't use it. And things like Sarah Euroscreen made a great video about the banana duct tape to the wall and the context of that art and why it was its own sort of satirical piece, and people often miss that context when they're talking about the value of that art. Art as protests and pranks, Just Stop Oil and how they relate to the art world, and being someone who loves art history and who loves art but also sort of is sympathetic to Just Stop Oil. Like, there's a lot of conversations that I think are interesting to have. Even technical things, like I just read a newsletter by James Gurney about a famous French instructor in the 1800s who his style was considered the academic style. And I even did a study of one of his paintings when I was in college, which kind of ties the whole educational, lineage together. And he was really interesting in the way he described Paris in the 1900s and how it was changing later in his life was really interesting. And I like talking about this stuff, and I like learning about art as a general subject. But that doesn't have a job label on it. And I'm 37 years old, so I feel resistant to labels like YouTuber or online influencer or internet personality. I'm sort of an older person now, and I don't really identify with that job title, and I think it has a lot of connotations for me that are negative, and I think that I am really getting tripped up on that, where I really like the idea of these labels of jobs, but I wouldn't actually want to do any of those jobs. But I really like the idea of, I think, being in conversation about this stuff. Maybe the idea of being a student and a teacher at the same time, and taking my own education seriously and sharing it with a community, and maybe trying to find my community. But that's sort of a vague idea that doesn't have a clear title ahead of it, and that's really confusing for me. And that's something that I think I'm wrestling with right now. thing I wanted to talk about is something that I'm also probably doing this week. Maybe a bit of a speed bump with getting through Mistborn and getting this illustration started, which is that my studio, my office, is a bit of a mess. It's very cluttered with a lot of things that I'm not really prioritizing right now. I have a lot of crochet supplies and a sewing machine and letter writing things and my D&D gear and old notebooks, and I think I have a lot of hobbies that are all sitting in my studio. So this week I really need or want to go through the effort of downsizing a lot of that stuff. I think if I'm sort of analyzing myself again, I definitely have, I don't know if you guys can hear the rain. My phone is getting soaked. Oh my god. I'm doing this while walking and I'm getting so worried that I'm getting my phone way too wet. I definitely have, I think I need to be good at things. I think when I start something or when I try something, I don't like letting it go. I like getting good at it. I just experienced this with making sourdough bread. I struggled with it and I was very stubborn about it until I got it down, and now that I can make it, I'm like, okay, well, I know how to do it. So, and now I have all of these supplies for making sourdough. But I definitely do that with other things. And in my kind of search to figure out what I'm trying to do and, you know, the kind of artist that I want to be and what's going to bring me meaning and fulfillment, one thing I do think that I've realized is I need to let some things go. I don't think I need my crochet supplies and my sewing machine in my studio. And this is made even more apparent by the fact that one thing I am taking seriously right now is learning to play the violin. And I have like no space to do it because of everything else that's in my office. So I'm doing a bit of an office reorganization, which started with me completely spiraling to the extremes and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to paint my walls. We're going to restain the dresser. We're going to skim coat the ceiling. We're going to do a whole thing and make the perfect office. And I very quickly realized that I was sort of avoiding the art itself, avoiding sort of the harder work, the scarier work, which is drawing and even making videos and thinking about this stuff more seriously. So I dialed it back. I might, maybe paint. And I'm very on the fence about it right now. I think that might be the one update to the room that I might sort of let myself do. But to move everything out of my office, that means I do have to organize the craft room that's in my garage, which is full of Christmas supplies. So it's a bit of a domino situation. But I'm working on that. I'm going to start working on that today and throughout this week while I'm reading through Mistborn. I'm still doing that. And I'm hoping I will probably update with what the office looks like after I do that. Somewhere in this video, you will see that there is a Captain America head in the garage storage, which is my husband's, and he refuses to ever get rid of it. So that guy is gonna dutifully watch over my art supplies and Christmas nutcrackers. So that's what I'm up to this week, and I'll post an update after I finish up the office and might start working on my website this week. And hopefully should have some sketches to show from Mistborn, so we'll see. So anyway, thanks for listening, guys, and I will talk to you guys next time.